Welcome, friends, and let me regale you with the tale of how a brilliant young intern uttered 3 fateful words that brought a struggling construction empire back from the brink of ruin. Enjoy the story. Downtown Los Angeles was abuzz with rumors about the imminent collapse of Alex Burrows' construction empire. Once a thriving business, Burrows' construction had fallen on hard times. Contracts were drying up, bills were piling high, and bankruptcy loomed on the horizon like an ominous storm cloud. Alex Burrows, the 45-year-old owner, sat hunched over his computer in his sparsely decorated office. The only sounds were the hum of the aging desktop and the occasional defeated sigh from Alex as he scrolled through page after page of bankruptcy information. How had it come to this? 20 years of blood, sweat, and tears poured into building his company, only to watch it crumble before his eyes. Maybe it's time to throw in the towel, Alex muttered under his breath, rubbing his stubbled jaw. He glanced at the family photo on his desk, his wife Lena and their twin boys, Max and Liam. The weight of his responsibilities felt suffocating. Lena had already picked up a part-time job to help make ends meet. The boys deserved better than a father who couldn't keep the lights on. Alex took a deep breath and bookmarked the bankruptcy page. He'd give it one more week, one more desperate grasp at salvation before admitting defeat and filing the paperwork that would dismantle his life's work. Feeling every one of his 45 years, Alex shut off his computer and headed home, not knowing that his company's unlikely savior was about to walk through the door. Across town in a cozy suburban house, 22-year-old Sarah Wilson was at a crossroads of her own. Fresh out of college with a double major in Spanish and German, Sarah had envisioned a glamorous career as a globe-trotting translator. But the real world had a harsh wake-up call in store. Saddled with student loans and unable to land a steady job, Sarah found herself slinging lattes and doing odd translation gigs to scrape by. "Honey, you've got to be patient," Sarah's mom, Karen, said gently as they sat at the kitchen table. "You're a smart girl with a lot to offer. The right opportunity will come along." Sarah traced the rim of her coffee mug with her finger, frustration etched on her delicate features. "But Mom, I didn't spend 4 years busting my butt in school to work minimum wage forever. I want a real job where I can use my skills and actually make a difference." "I know, sweetie, and you will. But sometimes you have to start small and work your way up. Promise me you'll keep an open mind and not pass up any chances, okay?" Karen reached across the table and squeezed Sarah's hand. Sarah sighed but nodded. "Okay, Mom. I'll do my best." Little did she know, a chance was right around the corner. The very next day, a secretarial job listing caught Sarah's eye. Burrows Construction was looking for an office assistant with Spanish skills. It wasn't exactly her dream translation gig, but it was a step in the right direction. Sarah polished up her resume and headed downtown for the interview. Dressed in her most professional blouse and pencil skirt, Sarah's heels clicked confidently on the tile floor as she entered the Burrows Construction offices. She was greeted by Ruth Jameson, the matronly HR manager. "Sarah Wilson?" Ruth extended a hand. "Pleasure to meet you. I'm Ruth. Come on back and we'll chat." Sarah followed Ruth to a small conference room, her nerves jangling beneath her confident exterior. The interview began with the usual pleasantries and questions about Sarah's background, but as Sarah began describing her language skills and study abroad experiences, Ruth's eyes lit up. "Sounds like you've got quite the knack for languages," Ruth said, jotting notes on Sarah's resume. "Spanish and German. Very impressive. You know, we do a fair bit of work with Latin American and European clients. Could come in handy." Sarah's heart leapt. Finally, a glimmer of hope that her hard-earned skills could be put to use. She and Ruth continued chatting amicably, and by the end of the interview, Sarah was feeling cautiously optimistic. "Well, Sarah," Ruth said with a warm smile as she stood to shake Sarah's hand, "I think you'd be a great fit here at Burrows. We'd like to offer you a paid internship to start, with the potential for a full-time position down the line. What do you say?" Sarah barely contained her excitement as she shook Ruth's hand. "I say yes. Thank you so much, Ruth. I can't wait to get started." And so, with a spring in her step and a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah reported for her first day as the newest intern at Burroughs Construction. She arrived early, dressed to impress in a crisp white blouse and navy slacks, but her enthusiasm was quickly dampened by the lukewarm reception from her new colleagues. Alex Burroughs, looking haggard and preoccupied, barely glanced up from his papers when Ruth introduced Sarah at the morning meeting. "Welcome aboard," he mumbled distractedly before diving back into his files. The other employees seemed equally disinterested in the bright-eyed new intern, all except Monica Ramirez, a 30-something project manager who was preparing to go on maternity leave. Monica took Sarah under her wing, showing her the ropes and offering friendly advice. "Just keep your head down and do your work," Monica cautioned as she and Sarah sorted through a stack of invoices. "Alex is under a lot of stress right now, and it's best not to rock the boat with new ideas. Trust me." Sarah nodded, trying to mask her disappointment. She had hoped to make a real impact at Burroughs, not just fade into the background, but she resolved to be patient and bide her time, just as her mother had advised. As the weeks passed, Sarah threw herself into her work, impressing everyone with her diligence and language skills. She deftly navigated tricky translations and smoothed over communication snafus with international clients. But still, she yearned for a chance to truly shine. That chance came on a rainy Tuesday morning, 3 months into Sarah's internship. Alex burst into the office, a rare spark of energy in his tired eyes. He waved a handful of papers as he called the team to an impromptu meeting. "Listen up, everyone," Alex said, his voice tight with barely contained excitement. "I just got off the phone with Dieter Schmidt, the head of Schmidt Tech in Berlin. They're looking to expand into the American market and need a construction partner. If we can land this contract, it could be the lifeline we need to turn things around." A murmur of excitement rippled through the room. Schmidt Tech was a major player in the German construction industry, and a contract with them would be a game-changer for Burroughs. But as the details emerged, the excitement faded to concern. "Here's the thing," Alex said, rubbing his forehead. "The contract is in German, and Schmidt wants to hash out the details over a video call. But my German is rusty at best. We need someone who can translate and fast." A heavy silence fell over the room. No one spoke up. Sarah's heart began to race. This was her moment, the chance she'd been waiting for. She took a deep breath and stood up, her voice ringing out clear and confident. "Ich kann helfen," she said in perfect German. "I can help." Alex's head snapped up, his eyes locking with Sarah's. In that moment, a flicker of hope passed between them. Alex looked at Sarah with excitement. These 3 words from the intern made him want to fall at her feet. Well, mentally at least. Although, to be fair, Alex was ready to crawl at this girl's feet. "You speak German?" he asked incredulously. Sarah nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "Fluently. I majored in German and Spanish in college and studied abroad in Berlin for a year." A grin broke out on Alex's face, the first real smile Sarah had seen from him in months. "Well then, Sarah, it looks like you're our secret weapon. Can you translate the contract and sit in on the call with Schmidt?" "Absolutely," Sarah said, her confidence growing by the second. "I'll get started right away." Over the next few days, Sarah poured herself into the Schmidt Tech project. She meticulously translated the dense contract, clarifying legal jargon and technical terms. She prepared extensive notes for Alex and coached him on German business etiquette. When the day of the big video call arrived, Sarah was a bundle of nerves. As she set up the conference room and tested the audio connection, her hands shook slightly. This was her big moment, the chance to prove her worth and save the company she'd come to care about. Alex entered the room, looking more polished and put together than Sarah had ever seen him. He straightened his tie and gave Sarah a nod of encouragement. "You've got this," he said quietly. "I'm glad you're here." Sarah swallowed hard and returned the nod. "Thanks, Alex. I won't let you down." The video call connected, and Dieter Schmidt's face filled the screen. He was a stern-looking man in his 50s, with piercing blue eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Guten Tag," he said crisply. "Shall we begin?" Sarah took a deep breath and began translating, her voice steady and confident. She deftly conveyed Alex's points and questions, while expertly interpreting Schmidt's responses. The two men quickly fell into a rhythm, with Sarah as the essential bridge between them. As the call went on, Schmidt's icy exterior began to thaw. He seemed impressed by Sarah's language skills and professionalism. "Your translator is quite good," he remarked to Alex. "She has a keen understanding of the technical aspects." Alex beamed with pride. "She's one of our best and brightest. We're lucky to have her." After 2 hours of intense negotiation, the call ended on a high note. Schmidt agreed to move forward with the contract, contingent on a few minor changes that Sarah would translate. Alex could hardly contain his elation as he ended the video chat. "Sarah, you were incredible," he exclaimed, clasping her shoulders. "I can't believe it. You may have just single-handedly saved this company." Sarah blushed, a mix of pride and relief washing over her. "I'm just glad I could help, and I have to thank you for giving me the chance to prove myself." Alex shook his head. "No, Sarah, thank you. You've shown me what real talent and dedication look like. And speaking of which..." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope, pressing it into Sarah's hand. "I want you to have this. Consider it a bonus for going above and beyond." Sarah opened the envelope to find a check for $5,000. Her eyes widened in shock. "Alex, I can't accept this. It's too much." "Nonsense," Alex said firmly. "You've earned every penny, and I want you to know that your hard work hasn't gone unnoticed. In fact, I'd like to offer you a permanent position here at Burroughs. We could use someone with your skills and drive on our team." Tears sprang to Sarah's eyes as the reality of the moment sank in. She had done it. She had taken a chance, seized an opportunity, and proven her worth. And now she had a real job with a company that believed in her. "I'd be honored," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Alex, for everything." Alex smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "Thank you, Sarah, for saving my company and for reminding me what really matters. Now, what do you say we celebrate with a team lunch? My treat." Sarah grinned, feeling like she was walking on air. "Lead the way, boss." As they left the conference room, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from her mom. "How's work going, honey? Any news?" Sarah paused, her fingers hovering over the screen. Then, with a smile, she typed out a response. "You were right, Mom. The right opportunity came along, and I seized it. I just helped land a huge contract and got promoted to a permanent position. Burroughs Construction is going to be okay, and so am I." Hitting send, Sarah slipped her phone back into her pocket and hurried to catch up with Alex and the rest of the team. As they stepped out into the Los Angeles sunshine, Sarah felt a sense of pride and purpose swell within her. She had found her place in the world, and she knew that this was just the beginning of a bright and promising future.
"All right, everyone's presentations are done," Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." "Absolutely right." His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. "Probably Sam." Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. "Do you know how much revenue we get from that company?" "We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs. Gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized." Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do." "I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you." "Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.